So I'm good to use your office there, Rob?
Please do, Dean.
It's good because I'm already here.
I know there was some chocolate that was left on my desk, so don't touch it. Exactly. Put that down.
So we are now streaming live. We can start at 6:30 whenever you're ready, Councillor Baxter.
Can anybody hear me? Can you give me sound check?
Hello.
Can hear you.
Okay, I'm seeing you speaking, Councillor Parkinson, and I'm hearing nothing.
Can you hear me? It's Councillor Day.
Try it again.
Councillor Day is here.
Okay,
Councillor Parkinson, can you hear me now?
I can, yes. Okay, the hookup to my speaker is not working for some reason. Oh,
Turn the
well.
hearing aids up.
It's now 6:30, close to. And I think this is all we're getting. Councillor Kobayashi won't be here, I understand. Is that right?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, it's 6:30. I'm calling the meeting to order. The November 16th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting is called to order at 6:30. And I'd like to acknowledge that we live on or we are meeting and live on the shared traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. Okay, roll call. Councillor Parkinson. Not hearing you.
I'm here, sir.
Okay. Councillor Day.
I am still here.
Great. Councillor Jansen.
Present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Not Councillor Kobayashi. Councillor Logan.
Present.
Okay. Just be aware, Councillor Logan, that I can't actually see you. I think you're hidden behind the list of names. Mayor Martin.
Present.
Great. Okay, so approval of near-term agenda, long-term agenda, and committee of the whole agenda for November 16th today. I need a mover. And that's Councillor Logan. Moved, thank you. Okay. Is there any discussion? I've got lots of hands up.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment to make.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Day.
Thank you. On the longer term agenda, number 7, on rideshare technology, it says it's complete, but I thought that was deferred because of COVID.
Okay. On the long-term agenda, sorry, I'm catching up here. Punch drunk
Page
after that
9.
1.5-hour meeting. Where was it on long-term?
Page 9, number 7.
9, number 7, rideshare technology. And it says complete. That's what you're saying?
It should not say complete. I thought it was on hold because of COVID. This is the ride sharing options to increase occupancy.
Yeah, I thought so too. Staff? Mr. Earl, sorry.
You have to unmute, Robert.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you.
Administration will update the long-term agenda to reflect complete but on hold. As council is aware, you received this report and approved its implementation. However, directed administration to hold off on implementation until such time that COVID would allow us to proceed safely.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Councillor Day, does that satisfy you?
Yes, that's fine. And then on number 12, same page, is the Juan de Fuca Performing Arts Society. And it says Q3, but it doesn't have a date. I'm just wondering, just wanting to confirm that we are going to be looking at that, but maybe it's moving to Q4 or Q1 of 21.
Yeah, we're actually past Q3 now, aren't we?
Yes, just about.
Mr. Earl?
Thank you, Chair Baxter. As council is aware, we have been working with the Juan de Fuca Performing Arts Society, and this item will likely move into the spring of 2021. We're at this point waiting to hear back from the society on next steps.
Thank you very much. Councillor Day, anything else?
Believe it or not, I have 3 more. On the next page, which is page 10, top of the page, number 1, communications with local First Nations has Q4 of 2020. I'm just wondering, are we still working towards that? I know that a lot of things are virtual, but virtual is better than not at all.
Mr. Earl?
Thank you, Chair Baxter. This is another one of the ones that we placed on hold because of COVID.
Okay. And then right below that, number 4, it has tax rate policy. And that was supposed to be Q3. I know we've had a lot of changes. So I'm just wondering if that's just being rolled up into budget or where we're at.
Chair Baxter, through to
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Earl.
that one is complete and we will update the status.
Okay, and then on the next page, page 11, top of the page, number 1, bicycle network. Q1 of 2021, is that still on track?
Hi,
Mr.
Mr.
Earl?
Chair. Hi, Mr. Chair. Stephen Burhill here.
Mr. Borhill, carry on.
Hi, yeah. So we're working with a consulting team to bring that forward as quickly as we can. We're looking at an update to the priority list of both bike lanes and sidewalk projects that's in the transportation master plan. Hopefully be brought forward to council as close as possible to the end of this year or beginning of next. And that's through work that we've done over the last week or so.
Okay, thank you.
Marvelous, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Day, for a very thorough read of the agenda. So I believe we had a mover on that. Did we not? Can anybody tell me? We did.
Yes.
We did have a mover. Okay. Is there any discussion? I've got Mayor Martin's hand up, Councillor Parkinson.
No, sorry, mine was just to make the motion. My apologies.
Okay. Councillor Parkinson?
Yeah, item 6.3 of the agenda, South Island Prosperity Partnership 5-year funding agreement. I would like to hear Councillor Kobayashi's thoughts on that. So I'm wondering if we could take that off the agenda and bring it on a next meeting when hopefully he'll be back.
Okay, so you're making a motion that we remove that from this agenda?
Correct.
Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Jansen, your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was going to offer a second. I realized we're at committee and none is needed.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Day, were you going to speak to that?
Yes, you mentioned 6.1, but 6.1 on my agenda is the climate change adaptation. I think you're thinking of SEP.
Correct, 6.3, correct.
6.3, right. Was that it, Councillor Day?
Yes.
And boy, these hands sure jump around. Mayor Martin.
Thank you. So in regards to this, two comments. One, Councillor Kobayashi and I had a long discussion earlier today. So, and I do feel comfortable reflecting his opinion on things. However, I would only feel comfortable about doing that if staff reported back that this was time was of the necessity to address it tonight. So could we have a comment from staff if this can get addressed or should be addressed tonight or can be pushed to the next meeting?
Sure. Mr. Borhel and Mr. Earl both have their hands up. So who's going to speak?
Hi, Mr. Chair, it's Ian Burhill here.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I don't believe there's a scheduling conflict if we move this up 2 weeks. We have a contract that would become, the timeline would become sensitive in the first quarter of next year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Borhel. Any further discussion? I'm going to call a vote on that then. All those against? I've got no hands against. So the motion to amend the agenda by removing 6.3 is passed.
Sorry, I
Councillor Day,
was
did your hand
opposed.
go up? Was
I
that
am
you're opposed?
Yes.
Right, thank you. Okay, we can record Councillor Day as opposed. And we can move on to adoption of minutes. Minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting November 2nd, 2020. And Councillor Jansen moved. Any discussion? Councillor Day?
Sorry, I didn't have my hand up.
Okay, so I've got a mover for the motion to adopt the minutes. Not seeing any hands, so all those against? Seeing none, that passes. And now we come to public participation, and I gather there are 3 people ready to talk to us, 2 via phone, 1 via computer. And everybody will have the written submission from Jeff Spence as well. And so just before we talk to anybody, let them talk to us, I have to read out this piece. So comments pertaining to matters that have been the subject of a public hearing are prohibited where the bylaws related to the matter have not been presented to council for consideration of adoption. So it's if there's already been a public hearing, but the bylaw hasn't been presented for adoption. And so the following items are affected. Bylaw number 1816, retail cannabis, 310 Whale Road. Bylaw number 1700-02 and bylaw 1817 on Meaford. Bylaw number 1840, retail cannabis at 310 Goldstream Road. And bylaw number 1700-04, Royal Beach Sub-Area Plan, and bylaw 1837, CD30 Zone, Royal Beach. So we won't have any discussion of those 4 items. So Amanda, I turn it over to you to introduce folks to speak.
Okay, so we can start with Tim Wicks. Could you please unmute yourself and you could be the first to speak. Please state your full name and your address.
My full name is Tim James Woods, and my address is Bratton Road.
Go ahead, Mr. Wicks.
Okay, I would just like to speak in favor of having a left-hand turn lane going on to Hatley Drive. I live at the end of Grattan Road, or I'm building a house at the end of Grattan Road, and I make that turn daily, a number of times a day. And there's a lot happening there. There's people trying to turn onto Hatley Drive, trying to turn onto Grattan Road. And so when you're making that turn and you're sitting on Metchosin Road, you also have the other factor that the bicycle lane ends right there too. And so you have people trying to go around you at the same time that bicycle lane is ending too. So that's a potential hazard there. And so I think it would be prudent to consider putting a left-hand turn lane there.
Thank you, Mr. Wicks. Great comments.
Thank you.
And the next one?
Okay, so the next person, I'm going to ask Roger Conrad to unmute himself, which is *6. If you press *6, you can unmute yourself on your phone.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, administrators, support staff, and Amanda, who was nice enough to work me through some technology issues. My name is Roger Conrad. I live at 309 Perimeter Place. I'm calling on item 6.6 of this evening's agenda and asking Council to seriously consider adding a left-hand turn pocket on Metchosin Road at Hatley Drive. I have personally experienced a close call with a raised 4x4 truck sliding past the right-hand side of my truck while I was trying to make a left-hand turn at this intersection. And yes, I had my turning indicators on. When finally stopped, the truck was actually straddling the curb with its back wheels on the sidewalk and its front wheels on the bike lane. I also spoke to a lady on Grattan a few days later after this incident who informed me that she was actually rear-ended at that intersection a month before. Another lady who lives at the corner of Grattan and Hatley has witnessed 3 close calls in the last week. It's just a matter of when a serious accident is going to happen. On a couple occasions, I have waited for 10 to 12 oncoming cars to pass before I was able to make the left-hand turn, and in that time, traffic behind me was backed up to the tennis courts. With the increase in traffic from Royal Bay and Royal Beach, this situation will not improve. I would also ask, if the turning pocket is approved, if it could be lengthened, as the suggested 15 meters will not be long enough to accommodate 2 cars or any vehicles pulling recreational trailers, and there are several in the neighborhood. After driving Metchosin twice a day for the past 11 years, I think I can speak with some experience. If the plan is to keep Metchosin Road 2 lanes, then several turning pockets and perhaps some lights will be required. From my experience, one is also needed at Cedar Crest Drive, where a car turning left can sometimes back traffic up onto Metchosin Road into the intersection of Souk Road and blocking the oncoming traffic until it clears on Metchosin Road. I believe Council wants Colwood to be a green community, and to do so, you must have good traffic flow and safety. It is my hope that before the final design for road standards and turning movements are approved, that council will give citizens the opportunity to view these plans and make suggestions. After all, we are the people who use this road each and every day. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conrad. And Amanda, we have one more.
We do. We have Paul Stinson. If you could please press star 6. Thank you, Paul.
Hi, my name is Paul Stinson, and I live at 305 Perimeter Place. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to speak in regards to Agenda Item 6.6 on this evening's agenda, and seeking Council to support a left-turn pocket area on Metchosin Road to go from Metchosin Road onto Hatley-Grattan Road. This will go a long way to reducing possible accidents, improve overall road safety, and improve traffic flow as we continue to see increased vehicles in this area, and more to come through the proposed densities in Royal Bay. As a homeowner that uses this intersection several times a day through vehicle, walking, or biking, it's fair to say that over the last 18 years while living here, it has become more difficult to safely exit and enter Metchosin Road from our area. Here are a few additional comments to illustrate why we support Council moving forward and towards a safer intersection. While walking or biking, as well as just driving our car, we have seen far too many screeching tires, honking horns, etc., related to frustrated people almost being rear-ended or T-boned at this location of Metchosin Road. This was not the case many years ago, even when the speeds in this area of Metchosin were 50 kilometers an hour. This issue is caused by the increased traffic, which I may add will be significantly worse in coming years and with the increased densities of Royal Bay. It has also worsened with the elongated 30-kilometer-hour zone and hours it applies, dawn to dusk. We own a fifth wheel with a combined length of 55 feet. So with the current situation, turning off from Metchosin Road onto Grattan often causes delays for those following us. We are one of several residents that own or use larger vehicles in this area, including motorhomes, trailers, fifth wheels, commercial trailers, along with large delivery vehicles, which can range in length from 35 to 60 feet. When driving our RV to our home, there is almost certainty that we will come to an almost or absolute stop on Metchosin. This is due to the road alignment, primarily having to slow to see around the bend in the road, and in anticipation of oncoming traffic, the later of which is now almost a for sure thing as traffic continues to increase in the area. With the lack of an ability to enter a safe left turn area sufficient for our vehicle length, we have seen increaser driver frustration behind us as we slow or stop while they instead want to speed up into the 50-kilometer section of the road. This has resulted many times in drivers behind us going into the bike lane and sometimes onto the walk area. Generally, we use Grattan even when not pulling our RV, as many times there are vehicles trying to turn left from Hatley onto Metchosin that can make it difficult if they are too far forward or too far left to enter onto Hatley Drive easily or safely. This issue has worsened with the relatively new sidewalk, alignment and location, and increased traffic going left onto Metchosin. Those are primarily non-residents trying to bypass Sooke Road and first parts of Metchosin Road. To also help illustrate the turning issues, when we have to leave the area with our RV and when we go right from Hatley onto Metchosin, we need to stay far left in order to make the approximate 120-degree corner due to how the sidewalk was installed and located. Previously, it was a 90-degree turn. And we have to go beyond the right lane on Metchosin to clear the curb. Anyone trying to enter off Metchosin during this time has to squeeze in a narrow lane beside us or go onto Grattan. These turning issues are the same for all larger vehicles. It is also worth noting for those that are not aware that all large vehicles currently only have one way in and one way out of this area, since going down Hatley Drive to Millburn would be an unsafe route due to the very steep grades. Thus, we must have the ability to safely turn from the chosen road onto Grattan and Hatley, since it is only usable intersection for larger vehicles. Thank you for your time and strongly encourage council to act proactively before serious accidents or injuries result. This is, after all, a very actively growing area of Colwood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stinson. Amanda, is that it?
Yes, that's all we have.
Thank you very much. And to the presentation, I invite Dave Ramsey, Director of Donor and Partner Relations for the United Way of Greater Victoria, to provide his presentation regarding the effects of the pandemic on our community and this year's United Way campaign. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Amanda is going to be sharing her screen for us, and I will walk you through our presentation. So I thank you for your time today. I'd like to walk you through our approach to campaign this year for our workplace campaigns for the United Way. Next slide, please, Amanda. Since the pandemic broke, we've been able to invest $1.3 million back into Greater Victoria's community. In the past, we have sought to seek donations to fund agencies to work with charitable groups and other areas to support those in need in our community. But since the pandemic broke, we've had to pivot and really identify the areas that are most vulnerable and need our support the most. We were quickly able to get $1.3 million back into the community to those who need it most, but unfortunately, the needs we're finding are only increasing. Next slide, please, Amanda. We've identified 3 areas of action, which is essentially identifying the most vulnerable populations of our community. And these are isolated seniors, families in need, and mental health and addictions. And what we've done is identify these areas and created a signature initiative program that is designed to provide a line of sight from the donor dollar straight through to that person who's receiving that donation. Whereas in the past, it would be fundraising to support agencies, to support kind of a wide band of folks in need in Victoria. What we've done since the pandemic is been able to isolate these areas that are in the highest need and the most vulnerable and put programs in place with our partner agencies to support these folks. Next slide, please, Amanda. So our first area of action is isolated seniors, and COVID-19 has increased social isolation and loneliness for everyone, especially seniors. Our signature initiative is the More Than Meals program. Next slide. Our More Than Meals program was launched in March, and it grew from 200 meals a week to feeding over 1,000 meals a week for a senior. And we want to keep this program going for the next 2 years. So essentially what we've done is partnered with our agencies to create hot meals and deliver these to isolated seniors who aren't getting nutritious food, hot food, or even that social interaction. And this is providing both for that. Our next area of action, we've also got some examples of how we can support and what the actual donor dollar does for seniors. So we wanted to be able to quantify what your donation does, and you can see directly where it goes. So we provided some examples from a payroll deduction of what it can do to support those seniors. $46 per pay provides 10 isolated seniors with regular meals, reassurance calls, and assistance with errands and appointments. $23 per pay provides 5 seniors with 1 healthy meal and a friendly visit a month. And even as little as $5 a paycheck provides 1 healthy senior with a meal and a friendly visit a month. Families in need is our second area of action. We know that COVID-19 has impacted families across the board, increasing family breakdown, domestic violence. And our signature initiative is a Little Phoenix Daycare. This is one of the first of its kind in North America, and we believe it's the first of its kind in British Columbia. And the Little Phoenix Daycare, next slide please, Amanda, is a safe spot where children that have been exposed to trauma in their lives, have been exposed to violence, can get into a daycare facility that is staffed and set up to meet their needs in a way that allows them to feel safe and feel cared for, and allows them to a little bit of normalcy. And the donations for this go to help towards finishing the construction as well as furnishing the facility. The next slide speaks to that. So $55 per pay buys 5 specially equipped high chairs for little ones to eat their meals throughout the day. $25 per pay buys a 4-piece locker for their hats, coats, and boots. And $15 per pay will buy a set of 5 giant pillows with common colors and a reading nook for them to sit at and to read their books at. And our last area of action is mental health and addictions. We know the challenges that COVID-19 has caused to folks facing mental health issues and challenges. We know it's impacted lots of people in our communities, from our families and coworkers. And what we've done is we've created outreach counseling to impact those most impacted. And the next slide will explain, sorry, our signature initiative is on the counseling to support people with mental health and addiction challenges. And the next slide, Amanda, will explain what those dollars will buy. So $46 per pay provides one individual with 1 month of rent, including all utilities and food, as well as 8 sessions with a registered counselor and at a supportive recovery home for men recovering from addictions. $23 per pay will provide
80%.
one 10-week counseling series for a woman recovering from abuse and trauma. And as little as $5 per pay will provide 2 hours of counseling services for someone living with mental health challenges. Our 2020 campaign is different than previous campaigns, but we wanted it to be a donor-centric campaign that was flexible, that fits your needs as donors. We have a comprehensive online toolkit, so we can have all of the resources and all the tools needed to help everyone execute a campaign virtually, 100% remotely. It's flexible. You can get your team together whenever, from wherever. We're focusing on payroll deduction to take the hassle out of giving and provide that tax receipts right to your T4. And we're very aware of the world around us. We really want to do a concentrated campaign with follow-up events through the year. Some examples of what we're doing in order to take our campaign to our donors, as we're not able to get together like we had in the past with events, is we've created QR codes on these cards, which essentially is something you can scan with your phone, and it takes you straight to the ePledge sign-up form, and it gives you examples of what's $25 worth. Scan the code, takes away all of the paper. It goes right to the form to fill out. Don't need to be at your computer. You can do it off your phone. And it's pretty straightforward how it works. Hand out the cards, open your camera app, tap and pop up to the website, and you can log in and donate right on the spot. So this is a really quick high-level view of our campaign. I want to get out in front of you and field any of your questions, but more importantly, I thank you for your time.
Okay, I'll try that again unmuted. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. I can vouch for the fact that the QR code on the printout works, because I tried it yesterday. Worked fine. Okay, now we are moving on to new business. It is the ICLEI Together for Climate Project, Climate Change Adaptation Strategies for the City of Colwood. A preliminary stakeholder informed guiding document. I invite Jill Collinson, Senior Planner, to introduce the item.
Hello, Mr. Chair. It's Ian Burhill here.
Ian. Okay.
Yes, our Senior Planner, Jill Collinson, sends her regrets, unfortunately, so I'm going to present on her behalf.
Okay.
So, as outlined in the staff report, we've got our ICLEI Together for Climate Change Adaptation Strategies for the City of Colwood, a preliminary stakeholder informed guiding document. And just to remind the committee, ICLEI is a international organization that's dedicated to local environmental initiatives. The ICLEI name relates to its previous, what it was known as the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, but it now goes by ICLEI Canada and Local Governments for Sustainability. So the action tonight that's recommended by staff is to receive the report and to endorse the guiding document. It was a result of 2 years of work conducted with ICLEI, along with 7 other island municipalities, to begin community-wide climate change adaptation planning. Attached to the report is the guiding document as attached as Appendix 2. Once it receives Council's endorsement, it's currently in a draft state, but posted on the ICLEI website with a draft water stamp. The guiding document will be used to address phase 1 of the city's low carbon resiliency plan that is scheduled to be undertaken within the strategic plan next year. So phase 2 of the low carbon resiliency plan that goes beyond this adaptation document will coordinate climate adaptation and mitigation planning and strategically link climate action with other community priorities, such that we can develop comprehensive and cross-departmental solutions. To create the draft adaptation document, multiple workshops were held with community partners, stakeholders, including Royal Roads University, Islands Health, the Chamber of Commerce, and various city departments. So as outlined in the staff report, workshops that were facilitated through that 2-year process identified local impacts and assessed vulnerability and risk, as well as evaluating climate change impacts across built, social, economic, and natural systems. So the resulting document identified key strategies and a suite of actions to address the priority risks, but really they're preliminary actions that were identified that will be provided to Council as part of that low carbon resiliency plan next year. So we can really look at this as a conceptual set of actions that will be brought forward for ratification next year with the community emissions inventory and a set of recommended mitigation strategies. That concludes my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borhill. Do I have any questions, comments? I see none. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I was trying to imagine from this document what our specific actions might be. And I really had a hard time drilling down to that. So I hope that you can help me, Mr. Borhill. It seemed to me that the action that made the most sense that I could pull out of it was the natural asset management. Can you maybe highlight some others that I may have missed, or tell me if you're working towards that already or where we're at?
Through the chair, I'm just opening the document. There, at the end of the guiding document, there's a table that summarizes all of the proposed actions that would be later considered as part of the low carbon resiliency plan. So there is specific as I think would be appropriate given the methodology that was used in terms of working with stakeholders and really depending on research that had been already carried out as opposed to new quantitative research taking place as part of this. So if you look at that appendice to the document, I can find a page number here, if you just give me a moment. It does a pretty good job of outlining the actions that are called for. So that is on right at the end of the document here. So that's section 7, Appendix A, and that's on page 27 of that document.
Yeah, so that is where I picked up the action item 14.2 to develop a plan to implement natural asset management. So I'm just trying to link what's in the report with what our plans are.
Through the chair, the city's plans as it would relate to the official community plan and other plans, or?
Well, we're trying to mitigate climate change. So what are we doing that's actually doing that?
Right, through the chair, this document is meant to highlight the risks to Colwood that would come from climate change, and then the adaptation strategies that we could bring to bear to address them. The mitigation piece would be the second phase of the process that we're calling a low carbon resiliency plan that would take into consideration both adaptation and mitigation actions such that there's synergies between the two. For instance, we wouldn't want to take on an adaptation action that required large emissions of greenhouse gas emissions, for example. We want to try to optimize both of those objectives.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing any other hands up. Councillor Jansen.
I'll make the motion to receive. I think that's what's asked for here.
Okay, motion's been made to receive. Do I have any discussion? Councillor Day, I take it your hand is just left from earlier? No, your hand is up.
Correct. My hand is up, and I'm sorry. I'm just trying to. I thought that we were still moving forward, but because on November 2nd we did make a motion to apply to the Vancouver Foundation System Change Grant Program, but. Perhaps my pages are getting me confused here, but I thought there was more than just receiving it that was asked for.
I'm just reading what's asked for here, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Borhill, any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The recommendation before the committee is to recommend to council that the report be received, and then also the preliminary stakeholder guiding document be endorsed. That would allow us to remove the draft watermark from the document that's now posted on the ICLEI website.
So, Councillor Jansen, is your motion the whole of the recommendation?
I'm reading it. It doesn't really say that, but if that's what we're trying to achieve, then I'm who am I to say otherwise?
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. Okay, I have no other hands up to speak, so I'd like to just say a few words. So on page 11 of the document, it talks about the IPCC report from October 2018, which said we have as little as 10 to 12 years to slow GHG emissions, and 2 of those years have gone by already, of course, so we've got maximum 10 according to their report. When do we intend to get to the implementation phase, which is talked about in, I can't remember whether it's in the document of the report, but we talk about getting to an implementation stage after we've created our emissions plan, etc. When do we anticipate that being, Mr. Borhill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In some instances, the city is actually already implementing some of the actions that are called for. For example, the studying of the impacts of sea level rise are one of the actions that this document proposes that the city undertake. This was a document that was created over the last 2 years, so we've moved forward on several of the actions, and in terms of this being implemented as a cohesive document in the context of also mitigation actions, we would see that happening sometime in 2021. once the low carbon resiliency plan is adopted by council.
Okay, so then we would be able to get beyond just planning and start to implement some of these actions, possibly 2021, 2022.
The hope is before the end of 2021, but substantial work that would require budget considerations would likely start in 2022.
Thank you. Okay. I see further hands up. I see Councillor Parkinson.
Thank you, Chair. So, as with you, I think, Michael, worried about meeting greenhouse gas targets and the necessity for them and what have you. But I notice in the report that the credits that we've received in 2019 are very substantial. That the corporate greenhouse gas balance has gone from 281. I don't even know what that is, to be honest, but 281. It went up to 395. Now we're down to 144 in 2019, which would seem to be staggeringly good work and something we should all be patting ourselves on the back for. However, it's made up almost entirely of balancing credits, which they say are recycling of organic wastes. That just doesn't seem likely to me. I mean, I guess if that's all it takes to get that kind of credits, we should be able to push ourselves over the line quite easily, which I somehow doubt is the case. Mr. Broyhill, can you give any sort of flesh on that thing, the incredible credit for organic waste recycling? And is it really that much and that big a deal?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Broyhill.
I believe Councillor Parkinson is speaking to the later item 6.2, but I'm happy to respond to the question.
So sorry, I thought they were all tied together. I thought it was all part of the same report. I can wait.
No,
Let's do.
They're related, but they're not tied.
Okay.
Mr. Broyhill, did you want to make some comments now?
Sure. I mean, I can wait and maybe have a better answer in a couple minutes.
Okay, okay. Let's do that then. Councillor Day, are you wanting to say anything, or did I just not lower your hand?
I think a little of each, but that's all right. I finally got my papers in order, so I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I think there's going to be a more fulsome discussion. I was a little bit thrown by the length and, well, both the generalities and the non-specificness of the items in the ICLEI report. But I can see now that a lot of that is because it's mostly from 2018, a lot of the work in there. So yeah, I think we should definitely get draft off the document. It's what we've been doing. So let's get to it with 6.2.
Thank you, Councillor Day. And Councillor Jansen, are you still wishing to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look forward to the day when this leaves the theoretical and enters the practical, as far as we as a council need to implement A, B, C, and D to work towards our objectives. I electrify our fleet, convert our diesel burning equipment to natural gas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm hoping that that is forthcoming when we near the end of this discussion. And then we can sauce that into our fleet maintenance strategy that I know we're talking about right now as well. Thank you.
Don't forget, run a ferry.
Thank you, Councillor Jensen. I will
ferry.
I will say, in defense of the reality of the city's efforts, that as far as electric vehicles are available, the fleet's already been electrified. There aren't electric pickups readily available, but I think they're coming soon. So we can move on to the next stage of that soon. And so, seeing no more discussion, let's put this to a vote. It's the recommendation on the first page of the report by Jill Collinson. Anybody against? Seeing none, that's passed. Thank you, everyone. And moving on to 6.2, report on 2019 corporate emissions summary. Mr. Borhill, do I take it you'll be presenting this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. So the recommendation is simply to receive the report. Council may be familiar with these reports. They've been provided for the last several years. Appendix 1 of the staff report provides the response to the CAREP survey. In summary, Colwood's 2019 corporate greenhouse gas balance was 144 tons of equivalent CO2 emissions, which represents a 36.6% reduction from the previous year. Though Colwood's GHG emissions were slightly up in 2019 compared to 2018, offset credits were received from participating in the Household Organic Waste Project that's managed by the CRD. So that led to a balancing that reduced our emissions, our net emissions from last year. A summary of the last 5 years net emissions are included in Table 1 in the staff report. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on local government operations, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing waived the CAREP reporting requirements that are normally due in 2020. And they said that it was voluntary to make submissions. So Colwood went ahead and did that as staff had already done the work and provided that to the province. Typically, a climate action charter signatory such as Colwood would receive 100% of its paid carbon taxes. However, because of the disruption caused by COVID-19, reporting was voluntary, and therefore funds that were received this year simply matched what was provided last year. So despite the city paying $7,370 in carbon taxes in 2019, we only received $6,458 in 2018 because of, this year because of the way the province approached things. And just like to remind committee that council resolved to establish a climate action reserve fund as part of the 2020-2024 financial plan. And the monies that are provided by the province through CAREP program would go towards that. So including the 2019 rebate, our total that's been collected since 2011 currently stands at $62,594 within that reserve fund. And that concludes my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borhill. Anybody wish to ask questions or comment? Councillor Day.
Thank you. I want to applaud the CRD program, because when that first came out to divert organics from the landfill, it really didn't make a lot of sense to me. It's a very expensive program for us to do, and that has resulted in the greenhouse gas savings that we're seeing in this report. So that completely has taken me by surprise, what a difference it made, and it wasn't something that I anticipated being that effective. So I just want to say that hopefully we can find other things that are as easy to implement as that. I mean, it costs a little bit more every month to separate your garbage and collect it, but apparently it is paying off. So that is good news. And that we have, a good basis, and that we're already working on, we have intimate knowledge of what this year's carbon emissions were, in spite of the fact that the province didn't ask us to send our homework in. I think that's good on Colwood that we're doing the work that needs to be done. There's a lot of young people who are very concerned that their futures have been negatively impacted by past generations. And I think this is the beginning of a real accountability intergenerationally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Councillor Logan, your hand is no longer up. Is that right? Okay, Councillor Parkinson.
Well, I guess like Councillor Day, I was quite impressed with the credits obtained from the organic recycling, which, you know, isn't that much work. But I guess I'm just surprised it's so much. I guess I'm also concerned it's a CRD program, and yet we seem to be claiming credit for the, you know, the good deed. CRD is presumably down there burning diesel in their trucks and their equipment and lights on or whatever. They must be looking for greenhouse gas credits as well. So surprising they're divvying them up on their program in this fashion. But I guess I would just, like to hear, do we believe these numbers? Do we think they're sustainable? Is there more to be had out of this program? Yeah, that's curiosity, just more curiosity. Happy to see the number.
Mr. Borrell?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it is it's a fair comment considering really what we're talking about here is a credit that's an artifact of the system as opposed to anything really that happened within Colwood's borders in relation to how the city's operations are impacting emissions. I can note that there's over 18,000 tons of food waste in the CRD that is sent to composting facilities each year. So I do expect that the numbers that were provided to us are realistic. There's just a massive amount of material that's as part of that waste stream. So it is reasonable to expect that there's a significant carbon credit that could be attributed to that diversion. In terms of our corporate emissions, which really the CARET program is looking at, there's two sources, holdouts you could say, in terms of where our emissions are coming from. The city's had a lot of success in terms of electrifying smaller vehicles, making our city operations more efficient, particularly at City Hall with respect to the use of air-to-air heat pumps. However, we've got our existing fleet of trucks that have not been electrified, and the heating and cooling needs of the West Shore Parks and Recreation Complex is a source of significant corporate emissions that we have not yet solved. There could be a reduction this year that's attributed to the reduction in operations at West Shore Parks and Rec that would be a result of the impacts of COVID-19.
Thank you, Mr. Borhill. I've got no further hands up, so I'll just say my piece. I'm not going to argue with the credits, but I would just like to point out that the systems we employ sometimes don't make a lot of sense. If all of us were to keep our food waste at home and compost it in the backyard and use it to grow food, we would be saving the emissions cost in transporting food to us, and we'd be saving emissions cost in transporting this food waste to wherever it's processed, and yet we would get 0 credits because nobody would have a record of it. So it's weird the way the system works. And I think we have to concentrate on doing real work to reduce emissions that we can actually say, yes, there used to be emissions there and now they're not. And we've done that with buying all those electric cars. And I too think that West Shore Parks and Recreation is one of the great places that we could reduce emissions But of course, we have to work with the other municipalities to do that. But I know there was a proposal to put solar hot water on top of that, on top of the swimming pool years ago, because I was part of that. And for whatever reason, nobody wanted to go ahead with it now. But I can't think of anything better than a swimming pool making its own hot water to save emissions. So maybe somebody can revive that, somebody who's got some knowledge of how West Shore Parks and Recreation works. Moving on, I don't think we got a mover. Sorry?
Chair, I'm
Yes.
trying to move the recommendation to receive the report.
Good for you. You're ahead of me. Thank
And
you.
I'm, if I may, Mr. Baxter, I did have
Yes.
my hand there a couple of times.
Oh, sorry about that. I thought it was from the first time.
Yeah, I that's okay. I've been there myself just recently now that I think of it.
Yeah, and I'm only operating with one eye, so.
Okay, well, there you go. Anyhow, I just did want to provide some encouraging news to council. Wanufuka Park, West Shore Parks and Rec has been doing some pretty significant things with their heat recovery and heat transfer systems, and I think we'll be seeing lower power bills and greenhouse gas emissions from them in the future. They've really done some good stuff over the last couple of years and are continuing to do so. So that's
that would be wonderful.
And that's
save money and
that's real.
save
That's real
humanity at the same time.
Yeah.
Great. Super. Okay.
So I don't think I have any real hands up. And I've got a motion that the report to be received for information. And anybody want to discuss that motion? No, I'm not getting any. Then I ask for all those opposed. And I don't see any hands going up. I really must learn how to lower all hands at one time. So that is passed. Thank you.
Michael, you can lower the hands with
6.3 is deferred. And so we're on to 6.4 in the agenda as printed. The Economic Recovery Plan Action Item Update Memo the status of the following initiatives identified in the Economic Recovery Plan. So I invite Rachel Buskey, our Economic Recovery Program Coordinator, to introduce the item.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council.
There you are. Your lips are moving. I'm hearing nothing.
I am.
And yet you don't appear to be.
I'm unmuted. I'm unmuted.
I can hear her.
Is anybody else hearing Rachel?
Oh, good. That's Thank you. I'll start
Somebody
again.
saying yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
But I'm guessing you can hear us.
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Michael. I think Michael's speakers have unplugged. Somebody put up a note. Let him know that his speaker's out. Oh, hold on.
Looks like Councillor Jansen's gone offline just to make that note.
Well, it's saying you're not muted. Anybody got any suggestions?
Oh, see, I got it told.
Is it me? It's me that's gone deaf.
80%.
Okay. I'm still not hearing anything. I have no idea why.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, now I can hear.
Oh, fantastic.
Sorry about that, Rachel.
It's all good. Thank you. Good evening.
The floor is yours.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide an update on the action items contained in the Economic Recovery Plan. This update focuses on initiatives led by Communication Services, as well as 3 forthcoming grant in aid applications resulting from discussions with our community organisations. Under action item 1.8 of the Economic Recovery Plan, which is to undertake a 2020 advertising programme in local newspapers and radio for Colwood businesses who wish to promote themselves regionally, Communication Services began Times columnist advertising for Colwood businesses during October, with a 3 to 4 page feature on Colwood's development partners, including Gablecraft, Seacliff and Omicron. The second phase of advertising will be in January 2021 and will provide advertising opportunities for a cross-section of the business community. In total, there will be 4 rounds of advertising over the course of 12 months. Communications is also coordinating a series of videos to promote the city involving council members and later staff team videos. Under action item 1.2, which is to institute a buy local advertising campaign through 2021 to encourage patronage of Colwood businesses, city staff launched the Colwood is Calling promotional campaign. The campaign leverages print advertising to attract regional attention and to increase regional pride. You will begin to see Colwood is Calling marketing material on buses, transit shelters, and street banners. Communication Services has also launched a hashtag Colwood is Calling competition to increase the visibility of this campaign online. The city has begun circulating Colwood is Calling t-shirts within the community and also to businesses in the community, asking people to share a photo of themselves wearing a Colwood is Calling t-shirt in their favourite Colwood location. Prizes for this competition are vouchers for local Colwood businesses. Action item 1.3 is to institute a store-to-door web portal for Colwood businesses. City staff are working with Up and Up to improve the city's business directory and make it much more visually engaging and easier to navigate. This will develop the business directory into more of a media-rich marketing resource for our registered businesses. And under action item 1.11, actively connect Colwood businesses to the West Shore Chamber of Commerce. The city's welcome letter to new business registrants now encourages businesses to connect with the West Shore Chamber of Commerce. The city anticipates receipt of 3 grant in aid applications targeting 3 actions under the recovery plan. The first is under action item 3.13, work with local service providers to identify ways the city could support local employment attainment and career development programs. WorkLink BC have indicated that they will be submitting an application for $3,000 of grant in aid to provide clothing vouchers for Colwoodian interviewees unable to afford appropriate interview clothing. And their career gear program will also provide vouchers for footwear, haircuts and bus passes to Colwoodian job seekers. Action item 3.6 is to work with Colwood Garden Society to increase their capacity to support local gardeners. Although we have not received an application from the Garden Society, discussion with School District 62 has resulted in a grant in aid application for funds to support elementary and middle school gardens to strengthen food literacy by encouraging student knowledge and awareness of gardening, agriculture, healthy eating, local foods and seasonality. And finally, relating to action item 3.11, the city has received a funding application for Colwood Elementary for $3,500 to add to their current budget of $10,000 to develop a nature-inspired outdoor learning and play space. Colwood Elementary intend this to be an inclusive, welcoming space to nurture students' appreciation of nature and further develop their environmental stewardship. Colwood Elementary's intention is to involve local Indigenous communities and Indigenous role models in this project to assist with the planning and implementation process. This space is also intended as an outdoor resource for the students, for the school students, as well as Colwood residents. The diversity of projects contained in the Economic Recovery Plan is providing the city with unique opportunities to increase community pride and to connect and work in partnership with organizations serving our community like School District 62 and WorkLink, and to build back better, but together. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this to you this evening, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? Not seeing, Councillor Parkinson.
Yeah, the grant and aids that are being applied for, they'll just be lumped in with the rest of our grant and aids as we go through our list as we have in the last couple of years in total? Or are they on a separate stream?
Ms. Buskey?
These applications will be coming into the normal grant and aid process.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any more hands up, so I'm looking for a mover. Councillor Day. Councillor Day, you're muted.
I will move receipt of the report. And I just want to offer kudos to communications for identifying some strategies, especially the ones that will help our youth who are probably feeling the least hopeful. If you don't have a job and you don't have those connections, you know, COVID times are pretty darn hard for you. So having the options of, you know, helping WorkLink and working with job seekers to provide what they need in order to work in Colwood, I think those are good things for us to do.
Completely agree. Anybody else wish to speak? No. We're discussing the motion now, but I don't see any hands. So I'll just take a vote on the motion. All those against? Seeing none against, that passes. And moving on to 6.6, Machosen Road, road standards and turning movements. Brent Molnar, Director of Engineering and Development Services, would you like to introduce the item?
Just a point of order, was there not a 6.5 there? I see one on my agenda.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll speak to this one as well, Councillor Baxter, if you'd like. Richard is not in attendance tonight, and I'm prepared to speak to 6.5 as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem at all. I am going to briefly share a screen and give you a quick introduction on it. My mouse is working a little bit odd for me tonight, so hopefully it all works. I'm just going to go F5. Okay, from beginning. Display settings. Okay, are you seeing just a slideshow up there in front of you? Economic Recovery Plan 1.7?
Yes, absolutely.
I hope so.
Yep.
I can no longer see my Zoom if anyone's functioning on it. So this is our Economic Recovery Item 1.7. Earlier this year, Council adopted an economic recovery strategy which contained potential targets to reduce the negative impacts of COVID-19 on Colwood businesses. One of those items, number 1.7, identified in the plan was to consider the development of a multi-tiered development security deposit system. A multi-tiered system would provide options to reduce security deposit requirements associated with new developments. This would potentially reduce the upfront cost for some developments. We've had the opportunity to explore this strategy, and I can walk you through some of the procedures and recommendations. So in terms of our presentation tonight, there's not a lot of meat to it, and I'm prepared to walk you through the various options that are contained in the report. The recommendations is that the report titled Economic Recovery Plan 1.7, Item 1.7, Multi-Tiered Development Security Deposits, be received, and also that Council consider the options that are identified in the report. And so working our way through those options, it was that option one, that local government, well, first off, that where we considered the options, we had to relate those back to the Local Government Act and sort of requirements that are specified in law and the sort of procedures. One of the obstacles for staff was that the Local Government Act prohibits municipal governments from providing an assistant to business. So developments are considered a business, which could exclude or include an exemption for tax or fee or charge. A multi-tiered system would need to be created so as not to provide said assistance. We also looked at the potential to reduce the development security system in regards to the deposits. Council in 2018, in regards to the security deposits, considered reducing our overall security for works and services from a level of 125% to 110%. That is now being uniformly applied against all instances where security is taken in regards to developments for engineering works and services. Gablecraft has been considered at 100% for the area in the Southlands. So when we look to consider the various sort of acts of fees and deposits where we could look at, we did focus on the securities obtained because that's often looked to be at our highest factors. As indicated in 2018, the city did receive input from the development community and reduced our deposits and security deposits from 125% down to 110%. And in certain preferred statuses, we have taken it down to 100%. However, we've looked at all our factors for taking security, and we feel that it's appropriate as tabled now. However, we could receive direction to create a reduced development security deposit system that looked at 100% instead of 110 or other values. If council feels that additional information would be useful to aid in the considerations that are before them on how they would like to specifically affect deposits, we can certainly report back. However, I need to receive specific directions to what attributes specifically. And the other option is that we take no further action at this time. So moving into the options of the report, what I just grossly covered there, we create a multi-tiered deposit system that balances those attributes of the Local Government Act, or that we receive direction in terms of exact and how we can go about responding to council and responding to our developed community. There is a risk, though, that the city may need to expend taxpayer monies where securities and deposits aren't quite adequate. That is the purposes for securities, is to cover those intended works that are supposed to be built for municipal benefit, and that's the community benefit. We can also, an option is also based around the deferring, looking for additional information as council sees fit. Or the option is to take no further action at this time. Thank you very much. That is the presentation that I've got, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Jansen, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to move option A, and then I do have a couple of questions.
Okay, we have a mover. Well, look for discussion on that. Councillor Parkinson.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to actually move option D. Frankly, I think the system is fine the way it is. I think we have to be very careful about taking deposits and potentially involving the city if things go sideways. It's the last place the city wants to be. And if we are in that situation, we want to be very well protected. I don't think that the security and deposits that are being asked for are any different than they are anywhere else. There's, of course, massive costs for development, whatever you're doing at whatever scale. And these are part of them. And so I can see the attraction of trying to make them different, but I don't see the benefits outweighing the risks to the city of potentially getting in the middle of these things. So if this is the motion as it stands now, I will vote against it, and I hope I get a chance to introduce the receive the report and direct staff to take no further action motion in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. Councillor Jansen, I'm going to go back to you. I obviously should have given you a chance to motivate.
Sorry, no harm, no foul, but one of my questions, or perhaps the only one, is are we working to address a need here? Is this something that we're just spitballing is might be a nice to have for some people, or is this addressing some kind of burning desire to make change?
Thank you very much for the question, Councillor Jensen, through the chair. When staff were first tasked with identifying methods that we could assist our community, we did. We looked at every aspect of fees and policies and procedures of the city and essentially endeavored to table them all for council consideration for how they would like to look at it. This is one of those areas. And so we're just trying to deliver on our COVID mandate as outlined earlier in the year.
Thank you, Mr. Mulder. Mr. Jensen, Councillor Jensen, did you have any?
No, that's what I suspected the answer was. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. One of the things that I noticed in reading the report, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe when we first envisioned this, it was when we didn't really understand the impacts of COVID. We were all just beginning to shut down. We're going, oh my God, everything's going to come to a rumbling halt here. But the reality has been that of all the businesses that are impacted by COVID, I think development is the least at this point in time anyways. So that part, I kind of feel like we've come to a place in time where the thing that got us heading in this direction hasn't really come to pass. And there's a heck of a lot of risks with tinkering with this system, which is described in the report. And kudos to staff for not shying away from that and for calling it like it is, that, it is the community that backs all of these things up. And in any case, if the development fails and something terrible happens, it is the community that holds the bag. So I think that is really good that staff identified it. I think you went through an exercise of trying to imagine every possible scenario that you could to ensure that the community is still able to build new homes and your kids are going to be able to find a place to live in Colwood. But with that said, I think that it is much more within the vision that this community has for itself that we support development, but we do it while ensuring that the community that is the backbone of everything is also supported. So I think that I would agree with Councillor Parkinson that option D is the best solution at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Mayor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. A couple questions. The first to staff is how do deposits of this sort limit a project from moving forward? If at all.
Mr. Molnar, you have this one?
Yes, I do. Mayor Martin, through the chair. I think that security deposits are unknown, and they all come down to understood and linear factors of the Local Government Act. Prior to the subdivision of land, you're to provide security for the incomplete works and services. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, you're to provide works and services or security for those works and services. They're really 4 lines of text. They're very, very easy to interpret. And so they're known to our development communities. We work actively with our developers every day to try and minimize their costs of security and bonding, to work with them to understand when their timing and triggers are for getting out to market. I would propose that we are as responsive as we can be into that. So this should be a norm and a known factor of business that staff is actively working to try and work with the developer to make sure that they understand and they also can know how they can control it. It's very simple. Complete the works and your security goes down. It's as simple as that.
So the reason I'm asking is because part of the question or part of the issue that I thought was occurring here was developers having or struggling to find capital during a COVID market. And if they're having to find capital to build the project, plus if they're having to capitalize the deposit, they may be struggling to capitalize both. It doesn't sound like that's an issue. Our development community is not having that as an issue, because I hear that. I hear that that from a funding model standpoint that they struggle. And I guess the other, and I'm going to allow you to answer this question in a second, Brent, but I guess the other question is, there's also a cost to them. There's a carrying cost to them that if a deposit sits with the city for a year, say, they're paying interest on that year. And I'm just wondering, would we at all help them if we were accepting letters of credit from a bank versus an actual cash? And are we legally allowed to do that?
So thank you very much, and through the chair to Mayor Martin. If I forget any portion of your question, please ask. Firstly, you were talking about the cost. Yes, it is certainly not cheap. If a developer is to ask for a building permit or early registration of a subdivision before the works and services being built, yes, we would take the money at 110%. There's a cost for administration on that as well. That agreement runs a year. They sign it with the city. It is open to extension at no fee and no charge, because we do actively work to complete these tasks as opposed to cash in these bonds and security. But there is the cost to the developer where they have to put that money up with the city, and then they have to pay the contractor to physically do the works. It's not until those works are completed and accepted by the city that the city will again look at its security and say, now we can give that back to you. So yes, there's a carrying cost over time, as well as an administration carrying cost over time. That in 2018, council also broke into a tier format, which is structured around 3 tiers. The next portion of your question was about the cost to the developer in terms of the lender. Yep, there is a cost that they will have to negotiate for this, and it's exactly what I just mentioned before. They have to provide that security for the city to complete the works, and then have to pay for those works up until that point of completion. That's one of the perpetual struggles of any municipality, is that municipality shouldn't be used as a bank, and they shouldn't be the funding source for your contractors. So that is why you're hearing about it, and that's why you're hearing struggles, because some of the smaller developers aren't able to pay or pre-fund all those costs, and maybe the margins are a little bit thinner. Your last question was about the form and the type of security. We established in 2017 the various forms of security, and they are relatively uniform across the municipal industries. It is cash, it is check, and it is letter of credit. Now, each bank or financial institution deals with those based upon the lender and the specifics about the person that's asking for the money. So that is where a developer can go and negotiate whatever terms is appropriate for that person to negotiate. Now, we're crossing a line of my expertise here. I'm not in on the banking side, but I do hear those sort of feedbacks as well. So I'm aware of that propensity to double carry. I'm also get asked all the times of the acceptable forms of credit, and we do accept the letter of credit as an acceptable form of credit.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't feel like we need to look at changing this much, but I guess to be a little more well, to take advantage of it, I guess my only opportunity that I feel like may be out there is I would much prefer that instead of the money being given back to a bank under carrying costs, if we get that money that was supposedly paid from an interest standpoint and actually saw an increase in our infrastructure on that project, I would much prefer to see that money being spent in the city than being given to a bank, just being held on for like a year or 2 years as we hold deposits. So that's my only opportunity that I saw as a city, that perhaps, you know, we could demonstrate some financial advantages that way. Saying all that, I will concur with Councillor Parkinson that I will probably just say that we should stay as it is. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Parkinson, are you wishing to speak again?
If I may.
Absolutely.
So just maybe to satisfy the mayor a little bit, my understanding, if you want to build a subdivision and it's going to cost you $10 million, you need to go to the bank and make sure that you have access to $10 million. And they will take whatever security they want. Then if you want to register the subdivision before you built it, you go to the city and say, well, I'd like you to sign this plan and register it. At which point the city says, well, I need to know you're going to build it. So show me, and they show a letter of credit for $10 million. So typically, my understanding is they'd have to have $10 million, but only once. It's not double counting. But one thing you said to me, Brent, was about holding that. Now, presumably, if a guy is building a subdivision over a number of months and he starts with $10 million letter of credit, and then he goes and does $2 million worth of work, you would let him reduce his letter of credit to $8 million, and he could take the $2 million and pay his creditors. Is that not correct? Like, you don't keep the $10 million till he's, swept the sidewalk and picked the last weed, do you?
No. And through the chair, to Councillor Parkinson, you're very correct in everything that you've said and so far. And a $10 million project is frankly easier to deal with than a $200,000 project. The $200,000 project may have less financial reserve, in which case staff will be asked to do drawdowns at $5,000 increments so a contractor can get paid. And what we look for is that bleeds staff time, quite frankly, and what we look for is professional sign off on those works and services being completed. If we receive that sign off, we'll be more than ready to do a $500 drawdown, or $2,000 drawdown, or a $2 million drawdown. It is incremental. It is as the works get completed, and we are progressive in terms of how we go about dealing with it. We have the same rules for a 10 million projects or a $100,000 project.
So the guy only has to access one lump sum of money for enough to do the project, and it's cheaper to have a letter of credit than it is to actually build something and owe the actual cash to the bank. You can usually get a letter of credit for a lower interest rate than you can get for actually money. So that's up to him and the bank. Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. I'm still on option D. Thank you, Brent.
Seeing no further hands. Oh, Mayor Martin, is your hand up again?
Yeah, it is. It is. I guess the only point that I want to make is that, and you use that because we're talking about a $10 million project, some of the developers have basically told me that it costs them about 1%. And so you take a $10 million project, that's $100,000 that could have been spent somewhere else, that just landed with the bank instead, right? So that's my point with us trying to, especially when we're talking about bigger projects and bigger numbers. If we somehow create some synergies, we can actually look at creating some opportunities around more infrastructure for the city, in my opinion. But I'm not that creative right now.
Well, again, Mayor, I think you're incorrect. I think that the letter of credit costs him 1%, whereas if he takes the cash and pays his contractor for building $2 million worth of works, he's got to pay a lot more than 1% on that $2 million. So I think the letter, once you have your financing for your project, letters of credit are cheaper than cash, my understanding.
Councillor Parkinson, I'm talking about when the project's complete. It's cost them an additional 1% on the project, is what I've been told.
Interesting. Okay, well, yeah.
If I can speak to this one, Mr. Mulder, sort of a reality check. If a subdivision requires $10 million worth of work, he's probably not going to be asking for the sign off and then doing the $10 million worth of work. Probably going to do $8 million worth of it and then ask for the sign off so that he can start getting pre-sales of lots while he does the remaining 2 million. Is it that kind of thing that usually goes on?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Councillor Baxter, it's really interesting, actually, the difference between a $100,000 project and a $10 million project. We will typically see that $10 million project completing about 40% of the work. They need to generate that sales and the revenue, and they know that they've got a period of time between a contract agreement or sale of a lot to actual when that person is going to move in to play with that and deliver those services. In terms of a $100,000 project, and I know those scales are vastly different, but in terms of a $100,000 project, it's far tighter in terms of their need. And so I would say that even though a person can access this form of security and bonding requirements without doing any work on a project, that is very rare. On a smaller project, we see about 80% completion, anywhere between 60 and 80% completion. And on a larger project, I mean the multi-millions, we'll see somewhere a little bit shy of 60% complete on a project before they ask for early registration.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any new hands up. If I'm wrong, please put your hand up again. I've just lowered them all. Mr. Borhill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make the quick point that it was raised that this idea to come up with a new regime for security deposits was generated by staff. It was actually an idea that came from our recovery roundtable session and was related directly from the development community to staff and council through that venue.
Thank you. And I would think that if we do end up pursuing option D and got feedback from the development community that we should perhaps move ahead with it, that I'm sure staff would bring it back to us. But right now we have option A on the table for a vote. And seeing no active hands right now, we're going to go to a vote on that. So all those against? And I have Councillor Parkinson, Day, Jensen, Mayor Martin, Councillor Logan, and myself all voting against. So does anybody want to recount? I believe we've counted all the legal votes. So Councillor Parkinson, you probably want to speak now.
You're on mute.
Thanks, Cynthia. Pull to Michael. I move that the report titled Economic Recovery Plan Item 1.7 Multi-Tiered Development Security Deposits be received, and that council directs staff to take no further action.
Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those against? Seeing none, that passes. Thank you, everybody. And we move on to 6.6 after one false start. The chosen road standards and turning movements. Mr. Molnar.
Thank you very much. I once again will attempt to share my screen and see how that one goes. So you guys all disappear when I do share screen. So let me know if you want me to switch back or when off. Just going to get us so I can go into the presentation mode, which I seem to be having a problem with. There we go. So tonight you've heard the people that have called in about this left turn movement. And I need to express that all of those parties that have phoned in tonight have reached out to staff in some form or another over about the last 8 months or a year when we started talking about the rezoning considerations and started bringing together the traffic implications. Members of this group that were also on the call tonight earlier on have been involved in a meeting in City Hall where we've talked about zoning and we've talked about the traffic implications as it relates to the council considerations that have preceded the rezoning considerations. So bringing specificity to Metchosin Road, this report tonight is to specifically consider the left turn lane at Hatley Drive. To inform council and committee as to our next progress as we go along, we will also be working in December to bring a scope exercise for all of Metchosin Road, similar to what we did for other areas of the city, namely Veterans Memorial Parkway and Allendale Drive. We'll be doing that as well in early December about Metchosin Road. So please receive this as a snip and a primer for that report, but also very specific in regards to the left turn, as it's been specifically raised by our community as well as considered in the transportation master plan. So the area in question is the Hatley Drive intersection. I show this large map because I wanted to demonstrate. I'll see if my mouse can work. Hopefully your mouse can turn. We've got Metchosin Road running around north-south in the image, and the Hatley Drive intersection underneath this star is one of the few points to dropping into the neighborhood that I consider the Lagoon neighborhood. It's just an informal name. And it's one of the few methods of ways to going into there. I think over the course of time, and as we further unfold our road standards, we should be looking at some of these connectivities for how they affect the overall traffic. And as mentioned, we'll be talking about Metchosin Road in specific when we come back to committee in early December with urban systems. In regards to Metchosin Road, though, it has been considered in regards to the transportation master plan, and it has also been considered in the various reports, including the joint memo that council has received in regards to the density increases for Royal Beach, Latoria South. It included Royal Bay North as it's developed and is developing, as well as future developing lands along Latoria, as well as Olympic View. So it was quite an all-encompassing study, and it too took the transportation master plan into consideration. So in regards to the transportation master plan, there were 5 intersections that were listed as being affected. You'll note in your report that there's actually about 18 intersections that impact Metchosin Road as we travel from Royal Bay through to Souk Road. Souk Road is the facet of another consideration which council considered last year in regards to future upgrade. The image that you're seeing in front of you right now is specifically the McElhaney design as it relates to Metchosin Road, the sidewalk and bike lane projects that were tabled in for design for this year. And there is specificity in terms of the Hatley Drive, where we're looking to bring that sidewalk around and ultimately reduce some of the scope of the present intersection. As I'm looking at this, I wish that the existing intersection was better ghosted underneath it so you can see how it sits, but really it's wide, it's open, and it certainly encourages that left turn to happen. This future design calls for that left turn ability to remain, but that it's not a specific left turn component, which is the request of the community. All of Metchosin Road has to be considered, though, in regards to the transportation master plan and qualified in regards to the density increases, in regards to the BUNT studies and the studies relating to the density increases, as I've previously mentioned. I'm just going to work through those from top to bottom as they're listed on your screen. So Latoria, there was a traffic signal identified in both the transportation master plan and the BUNT memo was considered by council in 2018 and 2019, which is that joint study in regards to density. At Painter and Metchosin Road, there was also a traffic signal that was first discussed in the transportation master plan in 2014 and reaffirmed in the BUNT study. At Lagoon, there again was a signal that was reinforced in both the transportation master plan and the BUNT study. At Wishart Road, which is existing signalized intersection, it was deemed to continue to operate under an existing signal. However, there would be needed to be improvements to the turn laning and geometrics. And then at Souk Road, we need to respond to the turning movements and increase the through lanes on Souk Road. So there's a whole bunch of factors there. For Hatley, it was specifically noted as traffic calming. And this is because this is perceived to be because the action coming and going from the hill for the density lands is essentially a straight stretch. You're on Metchosin Road, you're down at Metchosin border, and you know a straight shot of where you're going as you're traveling northbound, same ways as you're traveling southbound, and you're cresting that hill coming down the hill. You're accelerating as you're coasting down the hill to the Latoria intersection. So this was an area of specific interest in the transportation master plan and the BUNT memo, and it was specifically noted as an area of traffic calming. Hence, the design that was undertaken with McElhaney essentially does that. It creates a little bit of widening at the northern aspect of the intersection, where it creates a little bit of a gore area, creates a little bit of safety. It separates out the bike lane and meets the intent of the transportation master plan, which is separated bike lane, separated by a buffer. It controls the Hatley Drive intersection. However, it doesn't leave room for that left turn geometrics. If you look at the area, it's actually just north of the Hatley intersection. This is the area there where we could pull the sidewalk back and stretch it back and do a little bit of redesign here, perhaps a little bit of redesign in the open area here. All of this is road in that entire area there. And we could affect the left turn bay by pushing out the geometrics on the east side of the road. On the west side of the road, they're right tight to property line, so there's no flexibility in the room there. But we could move it out to the east. But we haven't formulated that design because we wish to see what council considered to be the next step on this is. As implied in the report, we feel that we could accommodate a 15-meter turning lane. That's the typical starting nature of a turn bay. It is designed 15 meters, is considered to hold 2 cars. But as you've heard from the community, that may not be long enough to suit some of the recreational vehicles. Left turn pockets do have other effect, which you'll note in the report. It has the effect of separating the through traffic to the left turn movements, which reduce conflict and also keep the fluidity of vehicles. However, sometimes gaps are necessary for the operation of driveways, which are frequent and occurring along Metchosin Road. And by creating stops by traffic lights or left turn movements that physically arrest the traffic, you create an advantage for the alternate movements that are looking to be facilitated on the roadway. So the recommendation for consideration tonight is that council consider the Metchosin Road standards and turning movements report as received, and that council direct staff to either not consider a left turn pocket of Metchosin Road for the eastbound turning movements or onto Hatley Drive, or that council direct staff to consider that left turn movement for the eastbound movement from Metchosin Road to Hatley Drive. And to do that, we need to engage with McElhinney, which is our consultant, to address the net results of that impact, and also potentially return to council with the financial implications relevant to the design. Because the design was let under RFP, there might be some minor amendments there. So that is the presentation that I've got for you tonight, and I'm also here and am able to answer questions as it results from the community that we've heard or as the report is generated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Molnar. I have Councillor Jansen's hand up.
Thanks, Brent, for that. And thank you, Mr. Chair. I am heartened to hear that this is part of the consideration for Metchosin Road from front to back, top to bottom. It pains me to think that we would have lengthy discussions about the design for this particular left turn when we're not talking about Daniel Place, we're not talking about Fairview, we're not talking about Langholm, we're not talking about any of the residences that are on the east side of the roadway. I would far rather be discussing a complete holistic approach to this entire stretch of roadway, and I would be loath to spend any money to to just have it torn up again, whatever we do once the proper design for that stretch of roadway is done. Specifically, there's nothing before me, all sorts of allegations about issues with regard to vehicle-pedestrian, vehicle-on-vehicle interactions in this stretch of roadway. I would far prefer to see what the ICBC crash data says for that stretch of roadway or what the RCMP has to say about that. No word about alternate routes into that neighborhood. I look on the map and I'm familiar with that area. It seems to me that there is a sort of a back route in there, up Hatley Drive itself, down towards the lagoon and up Hatley Drive. So I think my point is I would far rather be talking about this complete stretch of roadway than this particular individual left turn. It might be the perfect solution. The problem I have is just talking about it in isolation. Now, it might be a perfect location for the left turn. It feels like that left turn lane or the middle bay is probably the right solution, but perhaps that's all the way along the Metchosin Road or at strategic locations. So those are some of my thoughts. And if there are some things that we can do in the interim, in conjunction with what McElhinney has to say, as far as some sidewalk roundings or movements, or even, for instance, the closure of the right-hand turn onto Hatley Drive from Metchosin traffic. If there's some small interim solutions that we could implement that might make that intersection better, then I would be interested in hearing that. But I would like to see what this intersection, what the engineers have to say about this intersection in its totality, with all the other intersections along that way, because it would bother me to think that we ignore the residents of Daniel Place, and then 3 weeks from now we have a contingent in here from Daniel Place with largely the same issues. Those are some of my thoughts, and I'd love to hear what my peers have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. Councillor Day.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. So yes, I was going to point out that the intersections that are listed on page 2 of 7 of the report, page 268 of our agenda, that outlines 5 intersections. There is a 6th intersection that I keep bringing up over and over again, and that is the connection through the Allendale lands to Veterans Memorial Parkway from Metchosin Road. So I concur with Councillor Jansen that we really need a plan for this whole road. It's a very important roadway in our community, and it's getting more so. And we do really need to understand its limitations and how to improve transit along that corridor as well. So I don't want to juggle and pick favorites based on how much input each one got. But I do know that it's a very important transit corridor, and it may become more important in the future. So we need to be thinking about bus queue pull out, or queue jumping lanes, sorry, that's what they're called. And those type of infrastructures, because it would appear that we are stuck with 2 lanes at this point in time, plus cycle lanes. So I think that although I understand the desire to calm the traffic and provide some gaps so that the driveways can actually function, so people can get out of their homes, but there is a plan for at least 3 traffic signals on that road, which will naturally provide some spaces. And there is also 3 more intersections that I think have to be built along that stretch of road, including Wishart, including Soup Road, and some sort of a left, or what would you call that, west connection from Metchosin Road into the Allendale and connecting with Veterans Memorial Parkway. So with all of those considered together, I think we have enough room at this intersection to find a way to make it possible for the residents to move the vehicles in and out of the area. I did really like Brent's star on the map, identifying it, because it does really show you how that is a really important loop into the Lagoon neighborhood. It's also an important loop for pedestrians, for cyclists, and there may be increased pressures for parking on side streets in that area as we develop more. And it just seems that no matter what we do, the cars, whether they're being driven or not, they're still needing city infrastructure. So I'm hoping that we can get to some expert advice on that whole corridor that takes into account our desires, which was what we put in the transportation master plan, but didn't identify the actual constrictions, which I heard a little more information here tonight about how we're really tight on the west side of the road, but the eastern side of the road has more room. So let's get all those details sorted out so that we can make a plan that works for everybody, and hopefully also supports the residents who spoke here tonight, who are feeling very negatively impacted by the improvements we've been trying to make.
Councillor Parkinson.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree with the last 2 speakers. I think that the solution has to be one of Metchosin Road as a whole, not just one little piecemeal here and there, especially as we start building more and more sidewalks. That's going to limit our options. So very much would like to see Metchosin Road looked at, and looked at with an eye to how much traffic can we move through there efficiently. I don't think any of us believe we'll ever get 4 lanes in there. I'd like to think there are options for 3 lanes, because we do have a number of driveways and side streets where if people had a place to get out of the main flow of traffic, it would be helpful. And you know, we've rezoned an awful lot of units down at the end of that road. And yes, we understand that Latoria and Veteran is going to be the primary vehicle movement, but there's still going to be people coming up and down Metchosin. So whatever we can do to create efficiently flowing traffic, I think we have to do. You know, the example I like to look at when I drive in and out of town is Craigflower Road. They've got the 3-lane section there with you know, a lot of opportunity for people to turn into their driveways, or to get out of the, you know, the lane of traffic so they can wait to turn into their driveways, whatever it may be. We may have to skimp a little bit here and there on cross sections. I'm not quite sure. We may not be able to do it in some places, but I think that perhaps the thinking of a few years ago of the 2-lane road section might predate some of the rezonings we've done down there. And I think we'd be missing an opportunity if we didn't do our best to put as much traffic as we could through there. So that's, to me, that's half of the problem of what can we do here. And the other half of the problem, and maybe this isn't the time to address it, or maybe it'll come at another time, is what should we do about the short circuiting from Metchosin down Hatley and Millburn? You know, there are options. We could prevent right turns off of Metchosin onto Hatley. We could block the road in the middle. You know, each would have its pluses and minuses. Each would have some neighbors thinking it was great and others thinking it was terrible. But you know, having lived in Metchosin for a while, I used that route religiously because it's a nice drive and it's just cuts off a little bit, but maybe we want to divert the traffic doing that to Lagoon Road instead of Millburn Road. So that's another exercise. Doesn't have to be coincident with the Metchosin Road works, but it probably should be before we finalize that intersection. So I'd like to see both those things addressed before we make a final decision here. And I know it's unfortunate that we have sidewalks almost ready to build, and as a champion of sidewalks, it irks me to think that we might be delaying them, but I think that's the right thing to do here.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. Right, I've got my 2 cents worth to put in. It used to be worth a lot more, but I'm retired now. I just want to draw a distinction between the intersection that we're talking about and most of the others that haven't been dealt with. So, for instance, on Sangster, you've only got 8 houses. On Kenning, you've only got 11. On Fairway, there's basically 9. Hatley Drive is convenient access for at least 40 homes. So it's an intersection on a different scale than most of the others. You may have noted I've only talked about intersections that lead to a road that is on the east side of Metchosin. All of those of us, because I live in that neighborhood, who are on the west side of Metchosin, can drive to the Wishart intersection or the Painter intersection when that's done, and access via a traffic light. So, for instance, my easiest exit onto Metchosin is currently Painter, but there's no traffic light there, and if that's a problem, I can just go to Wishart. Whereas these roads on the east side of Metchosin, they don't have an easy alternative like those of us on the west, but only the Hatley intersection leads to a significant number of houses. The others are very small, and you know, it's about 2 things. It's about how long do people have to wait to get in to their road, but also how much of a burden do they impose upon the other traffic that's trying to move and can't get by them until they find a gap. There's also the issue of the closer you are to a traffic light, as Sangster will be before long, the traffic light creates gaps, and you can use those gaps to make your turn. So the Hatley intersection has everything against it. It's the furthest one away from traffic lights and has the largest number of vehicles using it. So I think there's a reason for tackling this one before all the others. But on the other hand, I think it might be worth having an engineer that we have look at the Hatley Drive intersection, also make those sorts of comments about the others, because they'll be able to explain that in numbers better than I can. I would just point out that this is one of the ways that councils delay projects by continually rethinking what the design might be. On the other hand, I think in this case, it's actually worth it. I've long hated that intersection for all kinds of reasons, even though I don't have to use it. But I often cross the road there, and it's the worst intersection along there from a number of points of view. Okay, that's perhaps that was 40 cents worth. I don't think we have a motion on the table. Yes, we do. Councillor Parkinson moved option D. And I'm not seeing any more hands up for discussion. So I'm gonna.
I think option D was the last report, wasn't
it? You were looking for no action.
That was the last report.
That was the last one. You're right. I'm going back. Oh my God.
We're almost done, Michael.
What do we now? We're 6.5 hours of meetings today so far.
Motion. Let's hear what she has to say.
Right. Okay.
So, thank you. Yes, it's been a lot of meetings today. I would like to move that council recommend to council that staff be asked to consult with traffic engineers on the length of Metchosin Road from Souk to Latoria, because I think that is the destination that we're concerned with as well. Or if you wished, it could be shorter and go as far as, God, I'm losing it. I can't say the name anymore. Hatley. Hatley to Souk could be the other appropriate segment. But in either case, we want to design the road to handle as much traffic as possible, to facilitate transit and turning movements where possible.
So we're talking about from Souk to Hatley?
Yes.
Are we ignoring Kenning?
Not ignoring it, but maybe not specifically addressing it in this segment. We've got a lot. We could consider it if in as a second stage. I don't think anything's imminently happening there that would be limiting to future options, whereas we do know that there is a proposal to build sidewalks which would limit future options in this area.
Okay, Mr. Molnar, are the sidewalks going all the way to Kenning?
Sorry for the delay there, through the chair. Yeah, the Royal Bay Lands have got to build all their sidewalks on the west side of the road to Cotlow, and then this design from McElhaney and Royal Beach up to essentially the border of those lands in Kenning. And so this design was to carry on past there to Painter. So this did include that entire frontage. But hearing the conversation, if I may add an input, it won't be that long. It'll be December that I'm back to council with Urban Systems to talk about this corridor stretch, and we can further refine these sort of details if we'd like to at that point.
Okay, sorry, I'm just making the point that Kenning is in the same situation as Daniel Place, really. So I'm not quite sure why we would end it there, but Councillor Day, you're moving Souk to Hatley, is that right?
That is correct. I think that we should consider all the traffic volume on the road. Like that, my concern is by cutting it off at Hatley, that we're not considering not only Kenning and there's one more road that I can't think of the name of right now, but the little roads that have a few houses on each of them are maybe not being considered, but we are considering as a council, how do we accommodate all of the development in that's taking place in South Colwood through this whole Metchosin Road corridor. So it is the further developments, but they have, as described by Mr. Molnar, you know, they are going to be bringing their plans forward. So I think, you know, to keep it as contained as possible, we need to consider all the way from Hatley to Souk Road in order to look at whether or not we're overly restricting or creating hazards in the road area that we're developing. And then we will have to look at that other section and its impacts on there at some point in time. But we should have some idea of the numbers to identify our traffic flows, because I think that's what Bunt has been doing in their joint traffic memos already.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Day. So we've got a motion on the table, and I believe I've got Councillor Jensen up for discussion.
Thank you. We're making up motions, but I haven't heard from staff. What works for staff as far as the easiest, most concise motion? Do we need to amend that whatsoever, or does that work for you in its entirety?
It does work, and we can set the limit at Hatley or run it right to the border of the Royal Bay development lands. We with those developing pieces, we have the opportunity to widen out the road and create some of those traffic calming natures. So it could be the entire stretch, and by all means, we can bring it back when we come forward in December. It's a little bit of expansion on scope, but it'll certainly set this stage. And we've got a relatively consistent cross section available of the right of way through there. And so I think that you can set the limit of whatever you feel comfortable with, and we'll endeavor to bring it back.
Thank you. And I'm going to propose an amendment that we carry that right through to the edge of the Royal Bay lands, and let's do it in one fell swoop. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well done, Councillor Jensen. So there's an amendment on the floor now.
Perfectly happy with the amendment.
Okay, you'll accept that. Unless I hear somebody objecting and wanting it separated, I'll consider that as one motion and move on to Mayor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know. For me, I feel like we're overstepping what this report was about and to address. I'm looking at page 268 of the report, and it identifies that the 5 major intersections that are needing to be upgraded in order. And then the next paragraph says Metchosin at Hatley has not been recommended for intersection improvements. I mean, it can't be any more clear. So why are we making staff do additional work when we have a report clearly in front of us, which has already identified the intersections that need to occur first on Metchosin, and that Hatley is not one of those 5. And so I feel like we're going far past what this report was intended to do or be. In saying that, I will not be supporting the motion.
Mayor Martin.
Yep.
Sorry, have you finished speaking?
I have.
My speaker went out again. Okay, I can't believe this.
It wasn't that bad, Michael. I didn't say that bad.
That's a great trick, Michael. I got to use that one. I like it.
Okay, sorry, Your Worship. Had you finished speaking?
Yes.
Or did I interrupt you? Thank you. I think I can answer your question by saying that the engineers, when they consider which intersections must be improved or should be improved, they're going by certain standard engineering methods and standards and numbers. And inevitably, councils and the public sometimes look for a higher standard. In other words, a lower wait time than engineering decrees is acceptable. And so you often see that politically something is not acceptable, whereas by engineering standards it is. So we are the politicians, and it comes to us for a final decision for a reason. So we have the motion on the table. I don't have any hands right now. Is there any further discussion? And not seeing any discussion, I'll look for a vote on that. Is there anybody against? Not seeing anybody against, or sorry, I forgot to take your hand down, Mayor Martin. Did you intend to put it up again? You're okay with?
Thank you. Yeah. No, I oppose.
You're opposed. Okay, Mayor Martin is opposed. Right. So that passes. And I believe we're looking for a motion to adjourn now.
Move adjournment.
Can't say I'm sorry to hear.
None of us are.
I want to thank all of staff for the amount of time they've been prepared to spend with us today. And,
yes.
And for so many excellent reports. Thank you very much. Good night all.